Places.
Thank you, places.
I was about to say that.
You can do it.
It's okay.
I think I know by now.
Welcome to the Thank You Places podcast, celebrating the art of theater and the amazing people who make it happen.
Join us as we sit down to talk about our experiences, the shows we see, and what's happening in the local theater scene, right here in Springfield, Missouri.
Today, we are welcoming an old friend from college days, Ben Parrales, who just capped off his senior year at Evangel University with a moving performance in Children of Eden.
He'll be giving us a first-hand look at the rehearsal process, how he and his fellow cast unpacked the deep and controversial material in the show, and what this show and his Evangel career have meant to him.
Thank you for tuning in, and enjoy the show. All right, welcome to the Thank You Places podcast. I'm Allison, and these are my co-hosts.
Nathaniel.
And Noel.
All right, so this is Mr. Ben, and we'll just kind of introduce him, and then we'll let you talk a little bit. So we met Ben all in college. I guess the first show that I did with you was Rainmaker. Mm-hmm. Yep, that was your freshman year.
Yeah.
And then how did you guys meet, Ben?
Were you in? You weren't in My Fair Lady, were you?
No, everyone thinks I was, but I wasn't.
We just assume you've always been around.
So the first show that we were in with you was Little Women then.
Was it Little?
Yes.
Ew.
The rest of the piece.
Dance together.
Yes.
That's
I
right.
definitely forgot who was in
Yeah,
Little Women.
we were
I
dance
wiped
partners.
that whole thing from my memory.
Oh, it was a
That's
fever
fair.
dream.
It was a fever. We talk about it all
I
the
let
time.
it all go. The first show we were in that we actually performed would have then been Charlie Brown.
Charlie Brown. This was,
First and
this
last,
was my big
I guess.
brother, Charlie Brown.
Ooh. That was a while ago.
That was a while ago, wasn't it?
Yeah. No
Yeah.
beard.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have
None of
worked
us
out.
did. We all
Doc
had
was
to.
joking
Remember,
that you
they
would have to
almost
shave
shave
your
our
legs.
legs.
Almost made you shave your legs, yeah. That was
The thing was, I was gonna do it. I was ready.
I mean,
I wasn't ready for that.
all right. So we want to hear just a little bit about you and your background, especially kind of how you got interested in theater, and your
What are you doing
trajectory.
currently? Yeah.
What are you doing currently? And kind of what's your trajectory? Where do you see yourself in the theater world?
What do you want the good
in the
people of
future?
America to know?
Yeah. So we'll start with how I got started. That was a fun little thing. You know, we had this musical in 4th grade, and it was like a Christmas musical. I went to, you know, your average private Christian school where everything was cheesy, Veggie Tales vibes.
Yeah.
So started there, and I just started loving it. And then I quit in high school. I did all the middle school productions of all the princess musicals. You know, did Mulan and Aladdin.
My brother was in
and
Mulan.
It's fun. I did Mulan, shaved my head for Chin Po, and what
That's
did,
who my brother was.
Oh my god.
that was a great role.
It is.
And I loved it. I loved it. Did Anything Goes freshman year.
Oh, wow.
Crazy show.
Yeah.
Tap dancing was not my thing. But then I quit. I did football full time, which was something that I did
wow.
during the time. Yeah. People say Troy Bolton. I'm like, no.
No.
No, different. But then after I quit theater, I then quit football. So that I took like a gap year. Then I went right back into it junior year, and I realized like this is what I want to do, and it was a big decision for me to make, and I'm happy I made it because now I'm here. But like the original reason why I was supposed to go to Evangel was football, which is weird, and not a lot of people know that. But
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Wow.
But then I was like, hey, I'm actually not gonna do it. I'm actually talking to Dr. Wisdom about doing theater instead, and he was like, coach was like, oh, whatever.
Nice.
Oh,
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's where I got started, you know, and I don't even know how many years it's been, but it's been a lot. And as a student, I've taken, you know, the final bow, as people say. So bittersweet.
Yeah.
Very bittersweet. Right now, I'm just kind of recovering from it.
Yeah.
Trying not to let the outside noise get to me. Like, what are you going to do with your life? Are you going to be the next this, the next that? I'm like, ooh. I think I think I need to graduate first and get back to me. That's my answer. You know?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's fair. So this show you're recovering from is a little one called The Children of Eden. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about the background producing of that show. So, Children of Eden is a 1991 musical. Music and lyrics by Stephen Schwartz and the book by John Caird. It's a very, very popular show with community and regional theaters because it can accommodate a very small or very large cast, so there's a lot of flexibility in there. And MTI actually reports it as one of its top 20 most frequently licensed properties, which is really cool, even though it never played on Broadway.
Yeah, I never heard of it before.
No,
I was like,
I had
what
never
is
heard
Children of Eden?
I
What?
had never heard of it before either, but it's one of the top 20 most
Wild.
licensed.
I think the only reason I knew about it was because last summer when Lucas Grabeel had his homecoming concert here, he sang "Lost in the Wilderness," and that was the only reason that I knew about it. He is so great. Yeah.
So this is a really cool fact. 5 years prior to its opening on the West End, Children of Eden, originally titled Family Tree, which I think is a really cool name. Family Tree, like if you think about it, has multiple meanings.
Both
it's
of those
very cool.
Parrales,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
5 years prior to its opening on the West End, it was originally written for a high school theater camp called Youth Sing Praise. So the show actually has religious roots, like in Christian theater, which is really cool. So the show opens with the Christian creation story and goes on to feature the story of Adam and Eve in Act 1 and features the story of Noah's Ark in Act 2. Stephen Schwartz has said that this, of all his shows, is his favorite. The man wrote Wicked. And
this is his favorite?
This is his, it's a
No offense, it's a beautiful
it's
show.
a beautiful show.
I'm questioning that as well.
The man wrote Wicked. Like, just think about how special this show has to be to him for it to be his favorite.
He's done several faith-based shows as well.
Yeah.
He did Godspell,
Yeah,
right?
Godspell.
Godspell.
He
I forgot
did
that existed.
the Prince of Egypt
Yes,
West End.
he
that
did.
played for a while.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
I was listening to that in the car
So
before
good.
I got here. I can't
I
lie.
have
So good. We
I have
listen to it all the
binged
time.
that soundtrack so much in the last year.
Yeah,
That's
very
amazing.
good. So I have some more notes from Stephen Schwartz, but it kind of ties in with things we're going to talk about later. So we're going to move on and we're going to talk to Ben a little bit more. We want to know how you prepared to take on the role of Noah. What scriptures did you study? Did you find anything from the original production? Just what did you do? How did you prepare yourself for that? Because it's a big undertaking.
Yeah, it's a lot to play, biblical character. Especially someone who's, like Noah. It's not some minor character. It was hard. At times, there was times where I was like, we were told many times by our directors, like, this show isn't scripture accurate. Which is something that is hard for us to understand. Like, I'm, going to this Christian school. And honestly, spiritually, at the same time, I was doing really well. Going through it, but there was a small little speed bump there where I was like, this will be harder than I think. But getting acquainted with being Noah was pretty easy. I mean, of course I reread Genesis, whole thing, because I was also a storyteller in the first act. So I had to do a lot of maintaining the same energy, being a storyteller and then being Noah. And that was hard. I think that was probably the hardest part about getting in the character was, I was this storyteller for an hour and a half. Now time to go be Noah.
Yeah.
And intermission was my time just to, I put in my earbuds, listen to a lot of worship music, and I would just pace back and forth.
Yeah.
And it was really weird. I didn't realize this until after, like, one of the last shows. I had like these like set songs that I would listen to, and they were all like had to do with water as well.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I was like,
That's funny.
oh, okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's not necessarily too hard to find in a Christian music playlist,
No.
but
Yeah,
still.
yeah. I just started like realizing it. And it was really cool.
It's funny.
But there was a lot of times where I was really like praying and like, all right, God, where's the motivation for some of this stuff? And a lot of it came from, he told me one of the rehearsals, like I was just praying and I kind of got like this this message from him saying like, hey, I'm the same God when all this stuff did happen.
Wow.
And I'm the same God with you today.
Wow.
Let's tell this story and let's create some beautiful messages, even though this isn't, scripturally accurate. This is something, the story between a father and his family is so powerful, and people need to hear it. That's something that our directors always said, like, there's people that need to hear these stories. And
For sure.
but yeah, that's a lot of prayer, but preparation as well. So
Wow. Very cool. All right, so there are just a lot of powerful themes in this show, with it being biblically based. A lot of overarching themes and things. So, we noticed things like sin and betrayal, choice, restoration, parenthood, and family. Were there any that really hit home with you, and why?
Oh yeah, there was a lot. I think one of the bigger themes was staying true to your faith, like staying course, like staying on course, and a lot of it had to do with being Noah. But I resonated with a lot of the other characters as well. Wanting to go see what else there is, and sometimes having a problem with authority and wanting to go off on my own when really that authority knows what's best for you. And with the whole Cain not wanting to stay with Father and wanting to go explore what else is out there and disobeying him. Like I'm not perfect, we're not perfect, so we all fall short, and I think that's where those messages come in to play, and definitely the family aspect is always hits, especially when if you know our directors, they're moms, they're mamas, they're grandmas, and it makes the very first day we sat down and did our read through, they started crying right before the song that I sang, "Hardest Part of Love," came on, and I'm like, oh gosh, this is the song, isn't it? And then Lori goes, "This is my favorite song," and I was like, oh gosh, this is a lot.
Ended up being the line that went on the poster too.
Yeah, and that's something that it was hard to understand, because I'm 22 years old, don't have a child, and I had to understand like the heaviness it is for a parent to say, I've done my job.
Yeah.
Now it's time for me to go. But listening to them really helped. But that was also something that I had put myself in their shoes for. But it was great. It was emotions that I've never felt before, and honestly, I'm grateful for it.
Wow. Yeah. All right. So we've already kind of mentioned it a couple times. The elephant in the room. Being Christians and very well acquainted with the Bible, there are elements of this story that have been changed, tweaked, characters added, plot points added. We just want to know how was that addressed by Doc and Lori, the directors, and the school. What kind of conversations did they have with you guys about that?
Yeah, it was a lot.
Do we want to maybe kind of lay out a bit of the plot point details as well, kind of, so we can see also some of what's different?
Sure.
Just for context.
Do we want to go over those parallels that we talked about there, or do we want to have him?
Either way, if you want to kind of.
You guys saw it too. I mean.
Yeah, just kind of like walk through the plot of how things went. I mean, you've got Father, basically God.
Which is huge.
In a huge role.
And I know James went through some like harder lines, like one of the lines that even says like, "And worship me." And by the way, it was one of my if he's listening, that was one of my favorite lines he ever sang, because it sounded so good.
His whole voice, like
he's amazing. But I mean, that's hard to like tell, especially for kids, because we had a kids cast, and I think that was probably one of the harder parts for me, is like, I really hope these kids don't take away the wrong things from the show. But I'll tell you later how we.
Sure.
That's fair. Yeah, the Father is like a very, it's definitely a more humanized, very very human kind of thing. A faulty
version of God.
Character, if you will. But that first act, again, like she said, is Adam and Eve, and so there's this center on Father making all of this creation and then saying, I want someone to share this with. I want someone to give this to, which I thought was really beautiful. That made me feel kind of giddy inside during that, like during the naming song and all, where they're like just that pure innocence of it. And then of course, Adam and Eve eat from the tree of the knowledge. Eat from the tree of knowledge. And fall away. And then it's Act 2 where we have Noah and his family kind of continuing that on, and there's one of the sons has a stowaway. Yeah,
we've added Yonah. Who, I don't know, I'm sure they talked to you guys about this. I didn't notice, and I feel stupid being so acquainted with the Bible. I feel stupid that I didn't realize the parallel to Jonah
Yeah, there's...
And how they almost threw this added character Yona overboard because they thought she was a curse. They've added this character Yona who is of the race of Cain, and Japheth stows her away on the ark because he loves her and wants to marry her, but his family doesn't want her there because she's of the race of Cain, and
God
the whole point was to get rid of
the
that
whole
race.
point was to eliminate evil from the world.
She ends up having more faith than the whole family.
She does, and that was one of my favorite moments of the show when. Was it Noah that went up and wiped the mark off of her forehead?
Yeah.
I caught that, and your little tuck your napkin back in your pocket.
Yeah, that was a trial and error when we first started that.
Yeah,
we only noticed that because that's the kind of things we look for.
So that was probably one of the biggest changes that they made, was adding that character. And another big one that I noticed was Eve's motivation for eating the apple. It was more of she was just inspired and wanted to be creative instead of necessarily falling to sin. So what kind of conversations did they have with you guys about that kind of stuff?
I mean, you guys are all right. I mean, it's something that I think the actors had a lot of flexibility, and we didn't feel like we needed to stick to the plot and what certain where someone else would think this is my character's decision on this is what, because we actually know about Adam and Eve, this is what they actually did. But no, they kind of twisted up the plot. But I think, let's go from, what did they tell us? They told us from the get-go, look, this is not scripture accurate. This is a story, but within stories are stories.
Yes.
And we believe in one thing, and that's, Jesus is king, and, he lives in us, and through him, we're going to tell these stories, and we're hoping, and I do believe that people actually learned a lot from them.
For sure.
And I think one of the bigger things that we really talked about was the emotions that God had. That was hard. But I think the overarching idea that Schwartz was going for was father and son, father and family,
definitely.
Father and children. And Eve, her motivation for eating the apple isn't to disobey father, but it's she's curious. You have that childlike curiosity.
There's a whole song about it.
There's a whole song about it.
Yeah, and I shout out to the snakes. They're awesome.
They were cool.
Love them. Yeah. So I mean, the flexibility that we had with knowing what Eve really did, and that childlike behavior was important for us to understand. But even Cain and Abel, it's almost like Father wanted to take over them at that, you know what I mean by be their father, because Adam and Eve have fallen short, and and it's powerful. And when you think about it, you just kind of have to. I kind of told people not to check their theology at the door, but to go in with an open heart and open mind, and not be like, oh, this isn't right. Don't go in there as a critic.
I had to stop myself and say, okay, Noel, absorb this as a story and not as a biblical portrayal of things. Because I came home and had a whole meltdown about it.
We had very different responses to the show.
After Act 1 ended, I turned to Nathaniel, because that's after Cain loses his mind and kills Abel, and it's just this wild series of events, and it was shocking, and I'm shocked that Evangel was able to put it on, honestly, the way it was. And I turned to Nathaniel, shook, and he's sobbing, and I'm like, oh God, what's going on? Am I okay? And then that just led to a whole thing. I just had to separate it in my mind from this is a story. Let's take what you can from the story.
I think
it was beautiful after.
Yeah, I think I just jumped to that spot faster because, at the very beginning, seeing the father's heart breaking as Adam and Eve chose to disobey. And James, what I told James after that show was it was so clear that you really understood the truth about God. And even if the script wasn't exact to that, you did everything you could to put the truth out there, and I could tell that you were doing that. And just seeing how his heart broke at hit me so hard of like, oh,
Yeah.
that's how God looks at me doing wrong and sinning. And then Eve's like restoration at the end. It was when Eve and Father hugged right at the end of Act 1 and were like reconciled. I like just was shaking, choking sobs all of a sudden.
That was what I said to Lori, the co-director, after Act 1 was finished. I said there are some scriptural inaccuracies, but there's so much truth. Nothing has been able to show me the love of God like what I saw in just the whole of Act 1, and visually and vocally, audibly, it was beautiful.
It was clear you guys did do all this work on it.
Yes, very much.
Brought the truth out.
Emphasized
it
the
was
truth about
product.
it. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit on that. Let's talk a little bit about what Stephen Schwartz has to say. I found a document where it was kind of a Q&A. I guess fans were emailing him in questions, and he was answering them, and it was very good. So basically, he states that they approached the concept with great care and caution. They kind of knew what they were dealing with. Even not being spiritual people, they had this reverence for the Bible, and they didn't want to offend people, and they wanted to do right by it, so he studied it. He said, after all, this was the Bible we were dealing with. Who were we to be putting our own interpretation on these sacred stories, or worse yet, adding characters and incidents? So he consulted the Bible and other ancient Hebrew texts that apparently went even further back and suggest the creation story was passed down orally for generations, even previously to Genesis, which is very cool.
I mean, if Moses wrote them 400
then-
years after Egypt,
then,
they probably were.
So he pulled inspiration from that as well, and they came across texts that were a little bit different than the account in Genesis, so they took inspiration from that. And all of their findings, he said, made them a bit more comfortable, taking some creative liberties with the stories that they wanted to present and the themes they wanted to present. But they took great care with it as much as they could, which I found really cool.
And it was a beautiful story.
It was
really
beautiful.
Would watch again, would put on, would be in, like...
Yeah, and he said that one thing I found interesting about that Q&A section of that document I read was that he said even in the most fundamentalist Bible Belt areas, it was very well received. He didn't have, even by the most fundamentalist Christians and theologians, it was so that proves that there's a lot of truth.
Yeah,
there's a lot of truth present there.
To be pulled out, and it
so
was,
so we were kind of curious as to whether you guys had any pushback. Nodding his head.
Yeah.
Yes. So we want to hear the tea on that a little bit. Give us the tea.
I already drank all my tea. My tea's gone.
So of course you're gonna have feedback, and it's not. I mean, so at this point, I like to think we're a bit more professional than where I was in high school. College is a more professional. I almost say that we are professional. So with that, you have to be able to take everything that everyone says and, not get overly upset about it because it's their opinion.
Sure.
Again, this is a show that was very contradicting to the original text, and going from, there's being more people than Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel.
Yeah.
To, I mean, just a lot. And the fact how they talked about how Eve... it was like they almost placed all her fault on
that
eating the apple.
Hurt me quite a bit, and then I was like, okay, I'm fine.
Kind of did do Eve dirty.
A little bit,
Yeah, and Adam was like, why'd you do it?
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Because I have to do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. But,
No.
but the thing is, I got some feedback from it that I was like, nothing like walking out and seeing your... professors out there.
Your theology professors?
Yeah, and so Jared Chatfield, I'm going to name drop him because I talked to him about this for 45 minutes.
Wow.
He's a big Old Testament guy, and we love Jared. But he was like, I was like, how did you like it? He goes, oh, did you like it? He goes, it was so interesting. I go, yeah. He's like,
Yeah.
Then he goes, I want to see it 3 more times. And I was like,
wow.
Yeah. He goes, he said there's points in this story where he just wanted to stand up, be like, stop. this is what's wrong. And he wanted to make sure that we knew, like, you know, the kids, the younger people knew that what we were saying wasn't true. And what we were happy about on stage, what we were sad about wasn't true, that those emotions were just our character. And I told him, look, you know, part of theater is entertaining. And this is a contemporary show that has entertainment purposes to it. This is not a lecture. This is...
it wasn't written by theologians.
No, that wasn't the point of it.
Yeah. So I think that's something that I've been trying to tell people, like, look, this is entertainment.
And it was entertaining.
Yes.
It was very
I really don't
entertaining.
think there's a
beautiful
part where people are like, I just didn't get it and it was wrong.
Yeah.
People were like, wow, it was really good. I just have some questions. And
Sure.
there were some older people, I won't say names, but they were like, I couldn't do it. I left. And I was like, okay. No, okay. Like, and you know, I take criticism very well. And I'm okay, absolutely, I understand. You know, and it's usually the older groups that are stubborn and are not okay with change. But there was really no change because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we still worship the same God, you know.
Yeah.
And there's no difference there. And all of us, I think if anything, grew more through the show spiritually. And
I mean, I don't think you touch something like that and don't
Change
have an
from
encounter with God.
Yeah.
there was some powerful stuff, like you said, that last scene in Act 1 where Eve is heading up, is going to heaven, and she was 6 for 6 for me. I got cried every show. And, just the thought process of, you know, what was Eve thinking? Like, because honestly, if you think about it, sin in our story, in the story that we put on, the Children of Eden, you know, there would not have been the opportunity for Cain to kill Abel if she would not have eaten an apple, because eating the apple brings sin into the world. And she says the line of sins of your parents haunt you. And it's like, whoa, I never even thought about the mental toll that it took on Eve. And then her still being able to go to heaven after the craziness that has been presented. She did an amazing job, and the whole leaving the dress behind. And even like God's emotions when he sends the flood. It's like those were real emotions. Like God, I know we think of God in so many different ways. Everybody has kind of like their own perspective. But when we were talking about the actual raw emotions that God would have when you see he built all of this, and one of the lines is he built everything from nothing, but now nothing will remain. It's like, dude literally is wiping out everything. He was so happy about it in Act 1. And now it's like, ugh, and you know, he's all loving, and that's an emotional toll. And those are the things I told people, like, look, there's messages here that are presented in the Bible. Just because we can't give you the verses where all this stuff happened, and you sometimes have to take a step back and say, first of all, the Bible is stories. You know, the Old Testament, a lot of stories. Everything is story based. There's lots of, there's lots of stories, and this was just us writing our own stories within an inaccurate biblical truth. So, I wish I could have talked to those people before the show. It's like, hey, you're gonna experience some things.
Do you think that in the future, if Evangel does another show like this, they'll have a talk back night, as like a lot of shows do with sensitive issues and things?
Sure. It depends. I think so. With this show, no. I think the only thing I think of shows like The Crucible and shows that, you know, actually do go kind of against our spiritual truths and things that are outright like inappropriate. And I think the reason why for this show we shouldn't have done one is because, like I said,
it probably would have been a shouting match.
Yes. Yes. And also, you know, it's a spiritual show. And there's shows that aren't. And then it's like, so that now at that point, it's just entertainment, not entertainment with the narrative or the story, with a message to be given that we are trying to reach. It's like, we're just doing this because it's the new, you know, I think if if it got to that point, that's where it would be if we were trying to be something that we were not.
Wow.
So
Okay. That's good. That makes very much sense. All right, we're gonna pivot a little bit away from kind of the big lofty, away from the
Didn't
big,
necessarily mean to keep you in that the whole time there.
yeah, that was amazing. But yeah, we're gonna just shift gears a little bit into kind of the more techie side. So this is one of the most music and dance heavy shows Evangel has done in recent history. How did that rehearsal process look different in your opinion from the other shows you've been in, like Little Women and
Charlie Brown.
Charlie Brown.
Little Women was a little harder though, because I mean my role was featured dancer.
Yeah, same.
And it's like, I don't know if people like know, if you know me being a featured dancer is wild.
Because we're the last people to be able to be chosen.
Like, that is crazy.
The
And
conversation we had about you being like helping people down during the dance sequence in the arc instead of
the choreo in this show was nuts. And I loved it. I loved seeing it.
Yeah.
Amanda Sneed, shout out to her. We love
Amanda Sneed.
Yeah.
Her creativity and her positivity helped it seem like I can do this.
Yeah.
And the Snakes were, every single one of them, they were also the dancing ensemble, so they were doing ribbons, and those ribbons were so, like, when they first brought them out, I was like, oh, it's like a human beta fish.
all the
That
ribbons and
snake
flags.
number definitely came out of the middle of nowhere. Like
Oh,
a
yeah.
weird
It's almost
jazzy
like
thing.
it's
I was
almost like a
what is
comic
going
relief.
on?
Yeah.
It's a tension
Yeah, that's
relief.
exactly what it was. Yeah.
Like, it's a tension plot point, but
Yeah.
it is a relief. We love a good jazzy villain number.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It was almost sobering to see that I'm not alone in, like, the whole, I'm more of a movement guy.
Yeah.
Jazz squares and I can do the grapevine and that's about it.
Tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And I know this is not really weird, but we were barefoot on stage.
Yeah.
That was hard.
Yeah.
Dancing barefoot and going up and down the stairs during all that time, and
That
but
ramp you had, that
Horrible.
was a slightly
Yeah.
different angle than it should have
horrible.
been.
Yeah.
It hurt. Our feet were.
I
torn
watched
out.
you guys, and I could tell it was like, ow, 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 ow.
shout out to the stage managers and crew and stuff that clean stages
Yes.
in between
The
shows,
past 3
especially
shows
there.
I've worked with Amanda, everyone's been barefoot at
Really?
least at one point during the show.
Wow.
Maybe it's just Amanda.
Amazing. Okay, Amanda.
Amanda likes barefoot dancing.
Oh my goodness. So, going on to more technical things, there were a lot of cool technical advancements made in this show. So what was one of your favorite devices? So we have things like the flags, the animals.
The lighting was really cool.
The lighting
Oh,
was
We're
yeah.
going to talk about that later,
Yes.
The
but
tree,
Okay, good.
the animals moving to the arc
The
that were just
animals.
flags, stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, it was great. And I think one of the best ways for me to describe some of the stuff was a reach, but we reached it. Like it was, the creativity that we had on some of the stuff. I remember just Doc and Lori spewing, they're geniuses at what they do, and they just keep talking, like, you know what? We're going to try it. The amount of times that we said, we're going to try it for the show, and, putting complete faith in whatever happens was awesome. I mean, the animal scene was something where I remember the first time we did it to give you guys a visual. I mean, for people who didn't see it, Noah has just experienced like some of the first animals coming on the ark, and he starts seeing all these animals around him, and an elephant comes out of nowhere. Thank you for helping with that.
you're welcome.
Yeah,
I made that elephant.
Noel
Yeah.
made a
Yes.
table turn into an elephant.
Yeah, that was great.
I pointed it out Nathaniel when we were in the audience. I was like, there's my tablecloth.
Noel and Parrales.com, y'all.
It's turn into an elephant. And Nathaniel goes, how in the world is that going to turn into an elephant?
And
And you'll
it did
see.
And I it was really cute.
It was.
I loved it. And it gave us some problems. Just like, how are we gonna? We have to hide it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we had to hide it while also like eating at it.
Yeah, I had some thoughts, and I just didn't know how you guys were gonna stage it. So I was like, well, I'll make the trunk removable just in case, and then I guess they can roll up the tail. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it ended up being awesome. I loved
Yeah.
it. I think that was probably one of my favorite parts. I mean, just going up and experiencing all of it. And I had the turtle when Lane, the guy who plays Ham, what a name, when he picks up one of the little kids. He's a turtle. And the first time I saw that, I was like, "Well, that's the cutest thing."
It's a
I've ever
kid
seen.
holding a turtle cutout.
I know, and the audience reactions were always like, "Oh,
Yeah.
it was cute." So
I
think
loved the use of the aisles and the rest of the just throughout the entire
Use the aisles
show.
a lot, yeah.
Like I think we have another little comment about it, but Adam and Eve when they get kicked out of the garden go out into the aisles and get put on normal garb to like symbolize
them being ashamed,
and
being
things and being clothed.
Because we couldn't
And that
actually
was
have them naked on
fascinating.
stage.
Yes.
And
Praise
then
Jesus.
having, the flags come through with the animals and just the giraffes being just a giraffe print being held up with a stick so it's a little higher. That was so cool.
Yeah.
and they're all kids. And I was like, well, I know maybe some of the butterflies I think weren't kids, but I mean all of them they're so cute and I loved them all. It was fun. I was like, this
fun.
40 days, 40 nights, sure.
Okay, so what was something funny or embarrassing or something crazy that happened during the rehearsal process or during the run of the show? Or a favorite
Give
memory
me
that you
a
had?
happy and then we'll ask about a
Ooh,
crappy.
a happy and a crappy, yeah.
Okay, well, funny. Oh gosh, there's a lot. Personally, there was a couple that I messed up on, and I would always mess up my sons' names, Ham and Shem. Even right now, I'm like maybe Ham and Shem, and I would always say Shem and Ham, Sham and Hem, or I'd call someone something different. But I think the worst one I had was during a dress rehearsal, and I was talking to Japheth after he said that Yonah is his choice, and I'm ticked off. I push him over to the side, and the line is, "Japheth, what you have done to this poor girl is a very cruel thing." And I said it. This is like our first time with an audience, dress rehearsal. John Spence was there, so his laugh. And Lori's laugh. She laughs. If you mess up, she will let you know by just laughing.
Yes, she will.
And I go, Japheth, what you done to this cruel girl is a poor thing. And I'm like, and they just start laughing, and I'm like keeping it together. I'm like, I'm still gonna stay in character.
You gotta keep going,
I'd say that, and there was where we have like an altercation, me and Japheth, on the ark, and to give people a visual, it wasn't big.
No, it was
we had a lot of
small platform.
Yes, we had a lot of movement to go on there. There's a scene where I hit him, and they were probably out of the 5 rehearsals in 1 week, I would hit him twice because it was either he was too far or I wouldn't connect. But there was one of the times where I just pushed him off the ark.
Oh no!
And he was gone.
He was gone.
Japheth showed them. Wow, we really sacrificed Japheth.
Dang.
It's complete opposite of how the plot ends up, right?
Yeah, for real.
You have an alternate ending ready in case Japheth falls.
Yeah.
Wow.
Those were just. I mean, that was funny.
Yeah, that's funny.
Nothing really happened like crazy during the actual shows.
That is good.
Nothing notable.
That's good.
Good.
Unless you guys saw me something, I don't know. Half the time
There
I'm
was
like,
actually in scene 3.
Someone was wearing shoes.
Came out their Birkenstocks. Oh
Wow.
That
So,
works.
you talking about kind of having that physical altercation with Japheth on the ark kind of brought back to my mind all the parallels between Act 1 and Act 2. And that's kind of one of the things that stood out the most for me throughout the whole show was the direct parallels between Act 1 and Act 2.
Direct
and
line
down
for
to the
line.
dialogue.
line
Yeah.
for line, like Adam
choruses.
choosing Eve and leaving Father, and then Cain choosing to murder Abel and leaving Adam, and then Japheth choosing Yonah and leaving, ready to leave the
Like
ark.
same reprise, same dialogue as well.
It was, which is, I mean, kind of the Bible.
It's history
It's-
repeating itself.
History
That's the
repeats
whole story.
itself. That's the
Yeah.
whole story of the Bible. The Israelites fall away again and again and come back, and there's redemption, and
Yeah, we think we're good without Father, and then you get slapped in the face and you go crying back to Father. It's something that I think a lot of Christians do even today.
Yeah, like without him, we
Even
just
today.
keep doing the same thing
Yeah,
over and
I mean,
over
and
again.
he's the best part is he's there every single time, happier just to see us. So
the parallels were insane.
yeah.
Not subtle, but in the best way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it needed to be in your face.
It needed to be overt. Yeah, it was
I
Amazing.
really loved the use of color with the lighting throughout. Color throughout the entire show, but especially with like the lighting and the costumes was fantastic. Like Adam and Eve in the garden were all wearing white and things. That was
Beautiful.
really fun to see their innocence. And then as they got moved from the garden, they had other clothes on.
Yeah.
The lighting with Father's emotions was really well done with like the reds and the blues and different things to show just the emotions. Evangel is not known for having a lot of wild lighting.
Shout out to Chandler.
Shout out to
design was
Chandler.
really good.
That
Restless
was
Nights.
a killer.
Yeah.
It was killer
And I
lighting
think that was
design.
his first time doing the whole show himself.
Doing the whole thing.
And we've had some good some new lights come into it, and like LEDs, a lot of LEDs.
We love a good LED.
It was great. He did so well.
It was just very pretty and nice shadows. We like some nice shadows.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Dr. Wisdom was very excited about her shadows. She told Noel, and they were talking at another point. She was very excited
I was
about the
teasing
shadows.
her about having too many lights, and she was like, "Well, I have shadows this time. You'll be surprised." And I'm like, "Okay, we'll see."
There were.
And then I show up and
You
there were
do
so many
have
shadows.
Yeah,
I
there
was
were.
so happy.
Yeah, it was just visually stunning. You guys' vocals were amazing.
Oh my goodness, the
The
vocals!
acting
I forgot that it was a
It was
musical.
incredible.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah.
Which you told us over dinner before this that you had 3 actual vocal rehearsals.
Yeah,
And
right.
this is a primarily singing show.
it was a lot of pressure to do individual work, and which is something that when you're I'm gonna say it again, professional. I'm gonna say that word probably a lot. Professional. You have to put your priorities in line, and I think at that point, like what you need to go into rehearsal being prepared for everything.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And sometimes we weren't. I mean, that's just that's the beauty in the stories, though. Seeing where we came from is always an awesome story to look back on. I mean, it was hard. I think there were a lot of times where we would go off during a rehearsal and sing with Doc, or sing with Professor Pritchard, who's another one of our directors. But yeah, we really only had 3 or 4 full cast music rehearsals. A lot of them were some of them later on were optional. We had 4 or 5 people show up to Saturday rehearsals.
Oh wow.
But I mean, we're also human. We have life.
And you're full-time college students.
Right.
Yeah,
that's
that's
rough.
insane. Yeah.
So we worked hard.
Yeah.
It came together.
And it
It
showed.
sounded
showed,
really
yeah.
good.
Well,
It
good.
shows
Awesome.
for
Thank
sure.
you.
Definitely, we've been seeing just in the last shows we've seen since we graduated, the continued growth of Evangel, stepping into new levels and getting new things capable, and it's really cool as an alumni to see it. It makes me really happy because we struggled through a lot, for not necessarily any fault of anybody's, and it's really cool to see the places that you guys are coming to and all, and that's
You guys walked. You guys ran so we could walk up there. You guys really went through it.
those acting boxes.
We've already talked about this acting box
acting
on this podcast before.
Yeah, I just saw a photo of Charlie Brown about all those acting boxes, how that was our set, and I like it was. I can't complain because I got mine readjusted because my feet didn't touch.
I know.
Yeah, yours was
We
smaller
had to
than
make
everybody
yours
else's.
smaller.
I forgot about that.
Which honestly, in hindsight, I think all of them could have been that small, but we'd already built them by the time we did.
Yeah.
I designed all of those.
They're
and I
great.
remember
I love them all.
cutting out all the bits and pieces with Nathaniel and Allison and Malia, and then we painted them and stuff. Or we had them cut out and we had them prepared. And then I remember getting a text from Doc being like, "Noel, whose box goes with whom?" And I'm like, "It's Peanuts characters. Is it not obvious?" But it's okay. Water under the
We were
bridge.
very creative with some of the
It was
cutouts.
beautiful.
Oh, I loved them. I wish I could keep that box.
I know, me too.
I'll know
too.
where would we put it?
That's my box.
I kept from the second time I was in Charlie Brown, I kept my pencil.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
So it can be
I
like,
kept a
rabbits,
lot of
rabbits, rabbits,
tiny-
rabbits, rabbits.
I kept a lot of
Oh,
tiny
that.
souvenirs from it here and there, yeah. Okay. Does anybody have anything else they want to share about Children of Eden? Anything else that stood out to you? Or
I got my piece in about
Okay.
Eve.
awesome, yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks
Yeah.
for supporting.
Great.
All right, Ben. So what's next for you?
Don't be stressed. Just go up to graduation if you want. That's
Honestly,
fine.
in theater or in life.
After this, I'm probably going to go home.
Yeah, literally, if you just want to tell us what you're going to do tomorrow.
No, we definitely want to know what you actually
Yeah, we
doing.
Well, I got I'm a senior, so that's a big thing, and you guys are familiar with that, and so I got to graduate. That's coming up May 4th.
Wow.
Star Wars.
May the 4th be with you.
Yeah, I think we're walking to Star Wars music for graduation too.
Beautiful.
hysterical.
Thank you,
very
Evangel,
excited.
for taking that opportunity.
Yes.
For real, I'm so jealous of
Yeah,
that.
that's awesome. I'm so excited.
We didn't even get Semper Fi. I don't know what we watched like Marriage March or something from.
Amazing.
It was rough.
But I mean, again, it's just those improvements that Evangel was just making. You know, I don't know. Of course, it happens on the tail end of mine, and you guys weren't even there. But
That's
I'm
we
happy
get to
it's
see
happening.
it, and
Yeah.
we're all
Yeah.
happy it's happening. Yeah.
So, anyways, sorry. Graduation, and then I plan on staying here in Springfield. I don't really know the extent of what's going to happen when it comes to theater. I'm kind of open to whatever. You know, I haven't really experienced life without theater for like 12 years. That's hard. And what I wanted, so I'm a theater minor. So I think I'd love to do like acting lessons or like help teach kids how to act. I love working with kids. So seeing them grow and learn on stage is awesome. I'd love to do help direct for little shows. I'd love to act in shows again because I don't see me not doing it.
Once you're in it, it's hard to get out.
It's it's a big
It's like sticky syrup. It's just
yeah.
That was gross.
I was accurate. But, I mean, you guys know it's like what, but where do I begin? And it's like that's the nervous part, and you know,
starting is the hardest part.
Listening to the outside noise, like, oh, good luck, you know, good luck not going to New York. You're not going to go to New York. All this stuff, and I'm like, I could do theater by myself in my house, and I'd be very happy with it. You know, and,
I mean, that's the heart behind what we're doing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things out there for like children and high schools and stuff like that, and then there's a lot about Broadway, and there's not a lot in the middle, and there's a whole world of things happening in that middle section of people.
There's a whole world happening just here in Springfield. There's a lot going
I'll say
on.
for any city to stay in, wanting to touch anything involved in theater, Springfield's a pretty good city.
Surprisingly.
Surprisingly.
You can go teach at Little Theater Education Center. You can be in shows at all these places. So.
Yeah, I mean, like you guys said, it's the world of endless opportunities, and I'm kind of at the point where it's like, you know, kind of gave it all to God, and we're just gonna see what happens. He brought me to Evangel, so you know, I believe He'll do something again that will get me amped up for theater, and who knows what that's gonna be. You know, who knows?
Who knows? You might take a job, and then Amanda Sneed might walk into your life and get you your first costuming position. Who knows?
I would be genuinely surprised if I did that. I would be shocked. I'd be appreciative, but I'd be shocked.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Seriously, it was an honor to have you here.
It's just nice to see you again.
It's been a minute.
Yeah. So, a couple things coming up, just as little reminders. So, by the time this airs, Noel and Nathaniel will be in full swing into your town rehearsals with Springfield Contemporary Theater. Keep an eye out for stuff on that. I'm sure that we will be... We'll be keeping them updated on that quite a bit. And then Beauty and the Beast at Springfield Little Theater opens June 9th. So that's another exciting viewing opportunity coming up as well. So
bit of a down season right now, but come mid-June, July, stuff's going to pick back up.
Ramp back up.
More stuff to do.
Yeah. So,
yay,
exciting. So that's all we have for now. Thank you guys so much for listening. And thank you again, Ben.
Yay!
Thank you guys.
And we'll see you next time. Bye! Thank you for listening to the Thank You Places podcast.
If you liked what you heard, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast and share it with your friends.
For more information and to stay up to date, check out Thank You Places on Facebook and follow us on Instagram at Thank You Places Troupe. That's TROUPE.
Once again, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.